Welcome to Archicraft, a bit of architect, your go-to podcast for modern software and solution architecture, enterprise strategies, and AI-powered engineering. Each episode is AI narrated, based on the original blog content by Dima Golodiuk at demongo.com.
You're listening to the 20th episode of the podcast. This episode is titled, The Architecture Leadership Framework. Purpose, Problem, Parameters, Possibilities. In this episode, we explore a simple framework for how leadership and teams should split ownership of an architecture decision. Let's get started.
If you were listening to this right now, especially if you happen to be a senior architect, a CIO, a CTO, or, any kind of leader steering a technical team, I want you to think back to a very specific and probably very painful professional memory.
Oh, I think I know where this is going.
Yeah, you probably do. So have you ever been handed a massive multi-million-dollar project where the actual solution was already, completely decided before anyone even bothered to look at the underlying problem?
Oh, man. It is practically a rite of passage in the tech industry, isn't it?
It really is.
You're brought into a room, you're handed this highly detailed, incredibly expensive map, but nobody has actually checked if you're operating in the right country yet.
Right. I always think about it like civil engineering, like building a bridge. It's as if the mayor of a city walks into a room of engineers and just simply decrees, build me a 2-mile steel suspension bridge.
And the engineers are just sitting there.
Exactly. They're sitting there thinking, wait, we haven't even evaluated the soil. We don't know the traffic patterns. We don't know if we actually just need a tunnel or like a ferry system.
Right.
Or maybe we just need to reroute the highway.
Yeah, the mayor completely skipped the problem and just went straight to the blueprint.
Yes. And today we are taking a deep dive into an insightful post by Dmytro Golodiuk, often known as Dima. The piece is called The Architecture Leadership Framework, and it focuses on purpose, problem, parameters, and possibilities.
The 4 Ps.
The 4 Ps, exactly. And it actually serves as the grand finale of his 3-part series on architecture leadership.
And, it is such a necessary conclusion to that series. He takes all these complex dysfunctions we see in enterprise architecture, like the exact dynamic you just described with the mayor and the bridge, and he just distills them into a remarkably practical framework.
So, our mission for this deep dive is to unpack why leadership so often accidentally ruins architecture by handing over answers instead of problems.
Yeah.
And we're going to explore Dima's simple framework for splitting ownership so that legitimate, elegant solutions do not just, quietly disappear before the team even gets to evaluate them.
Right.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we get to the framework itself, we really have to examine the vulnerable space that this framework is designed to protect, right? Dima calls it the solution space.
Yeah, the solution space. The central premise that Dima operates from here is that architecture inherently has more than one right answer.
More than one.
Right. If you're analyzing a situation and there is genuinely only one possible path forward, then the actual architecture work already happened upstream.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it happened before the person with the title architect even entered the conversation. Because architecture at its core is a discipline of evaluating trade-offs.
Right, weighing the options.
Exactly. Which means there have to be multiple viable paths to solve a given problem.
So if that mayor hands you the blueprint for the steel suspension bridge, the architecture is basically dead on arrival.
It's entirely bypassed. I mean, think about a massive corporate initiative that we see all the time, right? Like a cloud migration.
Oh, classic.
Right. A mandate comes down from the executive suite, move this entire legacy system to the cloud.
Which sounds great, right?
It sounds like a decisive strategy, but it is actually a premature mandate that completely circumvents the real taxonomy of options.
Because move to the cloud is incredibly vague and yet somehow overly prescriptive at the exact same time.
Yes.
And in the source material, Dima points out that cloud migrations have a very famous established structure that just gets completely ignored in these mandates.
Right. He brings up the well-known AWS 6Rs of migration. You've got options to rehost, replatform, repurchase, refactor, retire, and retain.
And didn't AWS extend it to 7 later?
They did. Yeah, they added relocate.
Relocate, right.
So that is a really robust menu of possibilities. When a leader just barks, move this to the cloud, and treats the migration itself as the undeniable answer, they aren't pausing to check which of those 7 options actually aligns with the business reality.
I mean, I'm going to push back on this, though.
Okay, go for it.
Let's look at the messy reality of being a CIO or a CTO.
Hmm.
You hold the budget. You are the one fielding questions from the board.
Sure.
You just got back from an industry conference. You see where the market is going, and you have, like, brutal time-to-market pressures. In that context, isn't it vastly more efficient to just mandate the cloud migration?
I see what you mean.
It cuts through months of internal debate.
Right.
And alignment meetings and red tape. You just point the ship and say, go.
I completely understand that impulse, and you're right that it stems from very real pressures. It feels efficient in the moment.
Yeah.
It feels like decisive visionary leadership, but it creates a massive false economy.
A false economy, how so?
Well, the hidden cost of skipping that menu of options isn't just that you might pick a slightly suboptimal cloud provider and waste a little bit of money. The real tragedy is that the options to retire an asset or, just do nothing quietly stop being options at all.
Oh, wait, I love this. It's like going to a doctor and saying, take out my appendix, instead of actually describing your stomach pain.
Exactly.
The doctor might just say, well, you just have indigestion. We should do nothing. But the do nothing option just vanishes from the table because the boss already said, cut me open and build.
That's a perfect analogy. Imagine an aging internal application that, say, only 3 people in the accounting department use once a month.
Okay.
The executive mandate says, migrate everything to the cloud by Q4. So a dedicated engineering team spends 6 months and hundreds of thousands of dollars rehosting an application that, if anyone had actually paused to look at the menu of options, should have simply been retired.
Just turned off.
Exactly.
Ugh.
Or perhaps the best answer was to change the human business process in accounting instead of touching the software at all.
Oh, that happens so often.
But because a technology solution was mandated up front, the definition of success suddenly shifted.
Wow. Success became defined as we built the suspension bridge instead of we solved the traffic problem.
Right.
Even when leaving the old application alone was the objectively correct architectural answer, a premature mandate makes the version of success where nothing gets built look like a failure to leadership.
Yes, exactly.
The solution space narrows down to a single prescribed action, and all that expensive architectural expertise you hired goes completely to waste.
They are no longer architecting. They're just laying bricks according to a blueprint drawn by someone who hasn't even surveyed the construction site.
Which is painful.
Very. And that's exactly why Dima introduces his framework. We need a way to protect that menu of options. Leaders need a clear, explicit boundary of who owns what in the decision-making process.
But how does a leader actually fence that in without just, letting the engineering team boil the ocean?
That's the challenge.
Because if you just hand over a vague problem, a team could spend millions designing a solution the company can't afford.
Which brings us to Dima's framework. The 4 Ps.
Yes.
And just a quick note for anyone listening who maybe spent time in business school. These are not the marketing 4 Ps of product, price, place, and promotion. Just wipe those from your mind.
Yeah, Dima is just borrowing the mnemonic device because it's sticky, but he's applying it strictly to technology leadership.
Right.
So the 4 Ps of the architectural leadership framework are purpose, problem, parameters, and possibilities.
I want to spend some time chewing on these because this is where the framework actually challenges typical management behavior. Let's start with the first P, which is purpose.
So purpose is the why. Why does this initiative matter to the business? This is about outcomes, not output.
Okay, outcomes.
Right. Are we undertaking this initiative to reduce operational risk? Are we trying to achieve faster time to market for a new mobile app? Are we unlocking a capability the business doesn't currently possess to enter a new market?
The purpose grounds the entire endeavor in business reality.
Okay, so that brings us to the second P problem, which sounds simple, but Dima points out something crucial about the altitude of how you state the problem, right?
Yes.
It needs to be specific enough that a team can act on it.
Yeah.
But it cannot be so specific that it is secretly just a design disguised as a problem statement.
Finding that exact altitude is often the hardest part for technical leaders.
I can imagine.
You wouldn't say, the problem is we don't have a Redis cache.
Right.
You would say, the problem is our database is locking up under heavy read loads during peak customer hours. One is a prescribed solution, the other is an actual solvable problem.
But let me test a gray area here.
Okay.
What if the problem is a specific legacy vendor? Like if a CTO comes in and says, we need to move off of Oracle because their licensing fees are bleeding us dry. Is that a problem? Or is that a prescribed possibility?
Ooh, that is a brilliant distinction. Move off Oracle borders on a prescribed possibility.
Right.
The actual problem statement should be, our database licensing costs are scaling faster than our revenue, eroding our profit margins.
Oh, that's much better.
Because by framing it that way, you open the solution space. The team might migrate off Oracle, or they might look at the architecture, realize the application is making highly inefficient queries that bloat the licensing metrics, and just rewrite the queries instead of changing the database.
Oh, wow.
But if you just say move off Oracle, you blind the team to that second, potentially much cheaper option.
That is a fantastic nuance.
Right.
Which leads us to the third P, parameters. These are basically the constraints that bound the work.
Exactly. Parameters are your budget limits. They're the regulatory requirements you absolutely cannot violate, like GDPR in Europe or IPA in healthcare.
Right.
They're the existing enterprise platforms you must integrate with, or perhaps the legacy systems you are explicitly forbidden from destabilizing.
You know, constraints always seem to get a bad reputation in tech culture. People hear the word constraints and instantly think of bureaucracy stifling innovation.
It's true, but the irony is that constraints achieve the exact opposite.
Really?
Oh yeah, a totally blank canvas is psychologically terrifying for an engineering team. It leads to analysis paralysis.
That makes sense.
Constraints are the very things that turn unlimited, paralyzing freedom into a defined sandbox where people can actually be creative.
Sandbox.
Right. If you tell a team, solve this database locking issue, but you only have $50,000, you have 2 months, and you cannot migrate off of our current vendor.
Wow.
Suddenly, human ingenuity kicks in.
The constraints force the creativity. I love that. So we have purpose, problem, and parameters. That leaves the final P, possibilities.
Possibilities represents the solution space we discussed earlier. This is the menu.
The 6 R's, for example.
Exactly. This is where the team explores whether to refactor, replatform, retire, or do nothing. It's the space where the team's actual technical expertise is utilized.
And here is the golden rule of this entire framework. Dima argues that leadership must own purpose, problem, and parameters.
Yes.
But the team, the architects, and the engineers must have real, accountable ownership of possibilities. That dividing line is everything.
That split is the heartbeat of this philosophy. Leadership defines the why, the what, and the constraints. The team defines the how.
If you are a VP of engineering, you own the first 3 Ps. You define them, you communicate them clearly, and then you step back and let your experts own the 4th P.
Exactly.
But psychologically, leaders really struggle to let go of that 4th P. Picking the solution feels like doing the real work. It feels like progress. And that is where Dima's framework acts as a powerful diagnostic tool for when leadership goes wrong.
What's fascinating here is how he uses the framework to diagnose 2 major failure modes of leadership. The first one he calls decree architecture.
Decree architecture. Okay, this brings us right back to our mayor and the bridge.
Yes, it happens when leadership reaches right past the parameters, crosses that critical boundary, and dips their hands directly into possibilities.
They steal the 4th P.
Exactly. They pick the answer themselves. They mandate the suspension bridge before the engineers can look at the soil. They hijack the 4th P. The team is no longer doing architecture. They are just executing a decree.
But there's a second failure mode that Dima calls architecture by abdication.
This is the opposite extreme. This is what happens when leadership never bothers to show up to provide the purpose, the problem, or the parameters at all.
Oh, wow.
They just wave their hands at the team and say, "You're the smart engineers, figure it out. Build us something great."
Wait, I'm stuck on something here. Isn't that just agile? I mean, we are constantly taught in modern management to get out of the engineer's way, empower them, and let them self-organize. At what point does empowerment cross the line into abdication?
That's a great question. The key is that empowerment requires context. Abdication is the absence of context. When leadership fails to provide parameters, they aren't empowering the team, they are abandoning them. The team is left with unconstrained freedom, which we established is paralyzing, and more importantly, they're forced to guess at invisible constraints.
Invisible constraints. That sounds like a nightmare.
It is. Think about a team that spends 3 sprints building a beautiful, cutting-edge microservices architecture, only to proudly present it to leadership and be told, "Oh, we don't have the cloud budget for that."
Oh, no.
Or, "Our legal department will never approve that method of data transfer." The parameters existed all along, but leadership abdicated their responsibility to state them up front.
And the really striking thing Dima points out is that both of these extreme failure modes, the micromanaging decree and the absentee abdication, result in the exact same tragic symptom.
Yes.
They both prematurely narrow the solution space.
Exactly. In decree architecture, the space narrows because the boss mandated a single option. In architecture by abdication, the space narrows because the team, lacking any strategic direction, just defaults to whatever technology they personally want to play with or, whatever they built at their last job.
Right, they just grab what's familiar.
In both scenarios, the rigorous exploration of multiple possibilities never happens.
So if you don't aggressively protect the boundary between the first 3 Ps and the 4th P, you're inevitably going to waste time building the wrong things.
Definitely.
But I want to pull back because here's where it gets really interesting. This dynamic transcends IT and software architecture.
Oh, absolutely.
Architecture just happens to be a field where it's very easy to point at the wreckage.
No, right. Architecture leaves a very clear paper trail. You usually have an architecture decision record, literally the formal document explaining why a team chose one path over another. Or you have a massive budget overrun or a catastrophic system outage. But the fundamental leadership mistake of handing over an answer instead of framing a problem, that is a universal human coordination issue.
Dima brings in some phenomenal examples from outside of software architecture to prove this point. Like, he looks at product management, specifically Marty Kagan's model of empowered product teams.
Marty Kagan's work is foundational in the product space, and his core argument is structurally identical to Dima's framework.
Really?
Yes. Kagan argues that the most successful product organizations don't hand their teams a giant backlog of pre-decided features to build.
Right, because handing a team a backlog of features is essentially decree architecture.
Precisely. Instead, successful organizations give their teams a problem to solve and specific business outcomes to hit, and then hold them accountable for the results.
They give them the purpose, the problem, and the parameters, and let the product team own the possibilities.
Exactly. It is the exact same dividing line.
But we can look even further back than the modern tech industry. Dima points to the military concept of commander's intent.
Yes, this is perhaps the oldest documented version of this principle. In military doctrine, commander's intent requires leaders to explicitly state the purpose of the operation and the desired end state.
Which maps directly to our purpose and problem.
Exactly. They establish the defined limits of the operation, which are our parameters, but crucially, they delegate the how to the officers on the ground.
Right.
They leave the possibilities to the people who are closest to the actual friction of reality.
And I love that Dima includes a bit of historical myth-busting here. He mentions a famous quote usually attributed to General George S. Patton. Never tell people how to do things. Tell them what to do, and they will surprise you with their ingenuity.
It's a great quote.
It is. But Dima notes in the source that this quote is actually heavily disputed folklore, not a documented Patton quote.
It's a great piece of historical trivia. But regardless of who originally said it, the philosophy is deeply embedded in successful military operations. Dima also points to David Marquet's work on intent-based leadership, which he developed while commanding the nuclear submarine USS Santa Fe.
I mean, you cannot find a higher stakes environment than a nuclear submarine.
No, you can't. Marquet realized that the traditional top-down command-and-control decree model was actively dangerous in that environment because it created a passive crew just waiting for orders.
Wow.
Instead, he shifted to giving the mission the parameters and purpose and trained his crew to come to him and state, I intend to do a specific action.
Oh, so the crew would say, I intend to dive the ship, or I intend to shift the reactor.
Exactly.
By forcing them to state their intent, he made them own the possibilities.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, whether we are talking about enterprise software architecture, building a new consumer product, or running a nuclear submarine, the finding is identical. Groups of experts who are given a well-framed problem and real constraints consistently outperform experts who are simply handed a mandated answer to implement.
Because a leader's job is not to be the smartest person in the room with all the answers.
Yeah.
The leader's actual job is to protect the space where the best answer can be discovered by the team.
Yes.
They have to protect that space from both directions, from their own urge to micromanage and from the chaos of failing to provide boundaries.
It requires a significant amount of discipline to maintain that boundary.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to summarize the core takeaway for you, the listener. The next time you are sitting in a strategy meeting and you are just about to open your mouth and hand your team an answer, a new tool to deploy, a mandated cloud migration, a specific feature to build, or, a suspension bridge to construct us, I want you to stop, take a breath, And ask yourself, which of the 4 Ps are you actually holding right now?
Are you defining the purpose, the problem, and the parameters?
Exactly. Or have you accidentally reached across the table and stolen the possibilities from your team?
It is a vital check on our own leadership habits. But this framework leaves us with a lingering, uncomfortable question.
Ooh, what's that?
We talked earlier about how a premature mandate destroys the do nothing or retire options on the menu of possibilities, right?
The vanished options. When building nothing was actually the right choice.
Right. So here's a thought to chew on. If we agree that do nothing, or retiring an asset, or just changing a human process is often the most elegant, risk-free architectural possibility, how do you, as a leader, actually measure and reward that non-action?
Oh, that's tough.
In a corporate culture obsessed with velocity, measuring output in story points, those arbitrary units agile teams use to estimate effort, how do you celebrate a team for brilliantly choosing not to build anything at all?
That is the real challenge, isn't it? How do you throw a launch party for a feature that a great architect successfully argued shouldn't exist? You can't exactly put "I didn't build a server" on a performance review very easily.
No, you can't.
That requires a cultural shift that goes way beyond just adopting a framework.
It requires a profound maturity in how an organization defines value, shifting entirely from output to outcomes.
I think that is the perfect provocative thought to leave you with today. Remember, you don't want the mayor designing the bridge, and you don't want to walk into the doctor's office and demand they take out your appendix without a diagnosis. Give your teams the symptoms, give them the constraints, and let them explore the possibilities to cure the actual disease. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Dima Golodiac's architecture leadership framework. Take these 4 Ps into your next strategy meeting, see how it changes the conversation, and let us know. Until next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Archicraft. This episode was generated using AI from Dmitro Golodiac's blog at demongo.com/news. If you enjoyed this episode, follow the show on your favorite platform and share it with fellow architects and engineers. Until next time, build smart, architect with intent.